All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Hockey Hub. I forgot to look at what number this is. I think 50 something. I don't know if we're at 60 yet, but either way. Oh, 57. Okay, producer Brennan just said 57. Episode 57 of the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Natalie here with you. I'm just going to start off the top by being like, I'm flustered. My mind is everywhere. The Bruins season wrapping, traveled home for Easter. I have family plans and trying to watch playoffs, catch up with storylines, end of season presser coming up later this week. I'm a bit of a hot mess, so this is how the show is going to go. Natalie, are you there with me, or are you going to hold it down for us?
I'm checking in. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how dialed in I am either. I mean, it's a crazy time of year because obviously, like hockey paused for me with Women's World Championships happening. PWHL picks up later this week, but also baseball season started for me. So I've got all the numbers and the stats and the OPS and the slugging in my brain. But then also I'm thinking about power plays and one timers and stuff like that. So a little spread out. But yeah, no, this is it's a crazy time of year, but I love it. The overlap gets a little insane at times, but it's fun to switch between the two. And yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't travel anywhere over the weekend. I just kind of stayed put. But are you in Canada? Is that where you're calling from?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto, where my family's from. I think if people have watched me before, they know I talk about that a lot. Like I come here as much as I can, my family and friends. But actually, one of my goals this summer, and I have been in Boston. This is going to be my sixth summer or fifth year, fifth summer, sixth year. I'm like going on my sixth year. I
Wow.
always go home.
Yeah.
Like I always go home to Toronto, and then I have family in Poland. Everyone except my parents and my siblings
Oh
is
my
in Canada,
gosh.
but my cousins, aunt, uncles, grandparents. So I grew up kind of like going to Poland for the summers and spending a lot of time in Europe, which is obviously such a privilege, and I'm very blessed to have been able to do that. And now as an adult, I spend my money, I save up every year for a ticket and presents for cousins and stuff like that. So I try to go,
That's
but
so
then I'm
cool.
like, I never get a New England summer. Like I've never really done. I've never
Yeah.
done Winnipesaukee. I've never done Nantucket. I've never done Martha's Vineyard, and that's where everyone's saying it's like that's the best time of year. So I have a
Hmm.
goal of not coming home too much, even though it's hard to be away from family and friends, and really like putting in the time in New England in the summer. I don't know. I know you're from New England, right? You're from around here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up between Lake Winnipesaukee and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So kind of like the best
Oh,
two parts of the state, which is crazy during like summertime, tourism time. But like the rest of the year, it's so quiet around here. It's so nice. But I would say get to Winnipesaukee. Have you ever been there for the Pond Hockey Classic? Because I feel like that would be up your alley.
no, but pond hockey. I like pond hockey more than regular hockey. Like I love What
Yeah,
is the pond hockey class? What is that?
yeah, so it happens traditionally in the Meredith Bay, which is just like a town on Winnipesaukee. They try to set up, I think it's like 27 different pond hockey rinks, and they have like those short little goals that they set up on each side, and like people around the state, around the region, I guess New England, they just sign up for it with their teams. And then it's like one day every year that it's like a team of, I don't know, like 6, 9 people. They go out there and just compete for like, I know like the Chicklets had a sponsored pond hockey classic up there a couple years ago. But yeah, it's just like a traditional New England pond hockey thing. It's like 2 or 3 days over a weekend and people just go out and there's like 26 rinks, which is super cool. But a lot of people come from like all over the region to either play in it or see it because it's kind of rare to see something like that around here.
Yeah.
But the ice has been kind of hard the past few years. It's been kind of soft. So they've moved it around a little bit. But if you know what, next year, I think that should be on your bucket list.
But it's always on Winnipesaukee, like on the lake.
Yeah. So because the ice has been kind of soft the past few years, they've moved it, I think, to Waukesha Lake. But
Okay.
traditionally, it's on Winnipesaukee if the ice can hold it. But yeah, there's some beautiful drone footage that they take of it every year. I think this year they played on Winnipesaukee. But it's great. I think you'd love it. I think you should go.
Okay, no, I definitely would. I love the Bruin schedule. I was just going to say, I know you're all over the place with like different teams and different sports you're covering. And then
Mhm.
back in my early days, my younger days, I was in the same boat and it was so hard. and just to keep track of everything and give all your attention. Like you want to do your best and give all your attention to
Right.
one sport, but then another one's that's completely different is pulling your attention to. So I honor
Right.
and respect what you're going through. And I say this not to like shove it in your face, but it's so nice to focus on just one thing, like just the Bruins.
I
Very
know.
nice. Okay. Very, very, very lovely to be able to do that. But that being said, rarely in the hockey season do I get to take a weekend off because like that's my job. Like it's like you have one
Mhm.
job, you know that saying you have one job.
Right.
That's my job. So it's like hard to take a weekend off because the Bruins are usually playing
Yeah.
and to go like check stuff out in the winter. So I probably won't be able to unless it's during their bye week or something. But I'm gonna check it out online and I
You
definitely
should.
want to go there this summer. Like I want to do New
Yeah.
Hampshire and are you going to be able to spend some time there in the summer? I know you're doing Woo Sox. So wait, yes, yes, it's Woo
Yes.
Sox. Yes, okay,
Yes, you got it
yes,
right.
okay. I was
Yeah.
like, is
So
that what
I
you're covering? Yeah, okay, got it.
Yes, I'm a little psychotic. I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I commute to Worcester every day for work. So not every day. When the team is on the road, I tend to stay remote unless there's something that calls me around Boston or something. But yeah, so it's about an hour and a half drive one way. So that gets a little tedious, a little long sometimes. But on those weeks that I can be like quote unquote remote, I will try to get up to the lake because my mom, she has a house up there across from Gunstock Ski Resort. So we kind of live in a little ski chalet village.
Oh,
But
beautiful.
big hike, like big hiking family. So if you've gone to the White Mountains, they also beautiful hikes up there. Part of the Appalachian Trail. That's how I like to spend my free time when work is not calling me. But this summer is kind of nice because I'm doing every game for the Woo Sox. My schedule is kind of dependent on what theirs is, so therefore I
Yeah,
can plan my life around what they're doing. But yeah, so it's you should definitely get to New Hampshire. I'm curious, actually, are your is your family in Poland? Are they hockey fans and do they watch the NHL?
great question. The answer is zero. No, they are not hockey fans and
Really?
they do not watch the NHL. I think I have many aunt and uncles, but I'm really close with two in particular, and
Hmm.
they always check out what's going on with the Bruins on YouTube, as they call it. They're like, we check YouTube for Bruins. It's very cute. So yeah, they'll like pay attention with what's going on with the bees for my sake, or they're like,
Yeah.
we Googled you. I'm like, that's so cute. Okay,
Oh,
they
that's
Googled
cute.
me.
That's adorable.
Yes. But no, hockey's not big in Poland. It's one of those, it's gotten bigger in Germany. Yeah, obviously we know Leon
Hmm.
Draisaitl's a really big superstar, but there are a couple, Tim Stützle, a couple of superstars. It's gotten bigger in Germany. It's Poland's one country, and like Czech, they're bordering, they're bordering countries. Both Germany and Czechia are bordering countries, and so I'm surprised that, and even Slovakia, which has way more hockey than people in Poland, than hockey players rather than Poland. I'm really surprised it hasn't picked up there. I don't know why. Maybe that'll
Right.
be my life's mission. Maybe I should change my life's mission and make it big in Poland. But no, it's
Yeah.
not really big there, and no one pays attention.
Hmm.
And it's surprising that my dad even got me into it, but it was his favorite sport when he moved to Canada. Out of the new sports he was learning about baseball and hockey and football. And
Hmm.
he loved hockey. So like got me into it. And I'm so lucky, but not big there. So
Yeah.
let's make that a goal of mine.
Yes, maybe put your recruiting hat on when you go back and see if you can find any young talent for us here. I think that'd be kind of cool to see it expand a little further outside of the traditional countries. Obviously, I think with obviously world championships happening right now too. We'll get to that a little later, but it's just cool to see how the different countries rally behind their teams and like names that you have never heard of before comes out and they have a great game or have a hat trick or a couple goals or something. It's just cool to see the expansion with I don't know, just like the national teams and what they're able to do and how the countries support. Because I remember when I did women's worlds last year, just the fan bases from each country like flew to Utica, New York to see the game. So it's interesting to hear how the game kind of spans across the seas and all that kind of stuff. But that's really interesting. And I didn't know actually how you got into hockey. So that's really cool that your dad's move to Canada kind of, helped instill that in you. So really interesting. But no, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, and by the way, like I probably should have set up what we were doing for the show. We are going to talk World Championships, the women's game, Canada versus US. We'll talk some playoffs, by the way, for everyone listening, and including former Bruins and kind of who we're looking at and what we're watching for as it's early in the NHL first round postseason. We'll get to some fleet stuff. So Natalie obviously covers the Boston Fleet, so she'll give us some insight about that. But before we get into it, I'll just wrap that thought. Um, yeah, I don't know why it's not big there. And I got into hockey just because of my dad. And it was really more watching than playing. I didn't get to do a lot of playing
Mhm.
growing up other than pond hockey with like the neighbors
Yeah.
and my brothers. One really cool thing about when I come back here, and I think Boston and obviously New England has such a deep talent pool that's getting deeper in hockey community. But I am surprised at how cold the state is and how little outdoor rinks I can find. And in Toronto, you
Yeah.
cannot walk 4 blocks without hitting an outdoor rink. And like hockey games, like from
Yeah.
Pee Wee and minor and like house leagues games, there many of them are done outside. And I remember bringing some
Hmm.
friends up here, specifically like guys that played growing up in the New England system, and they come up, to visit me. Friends will come visit in the winters, over the Christmas break or like bye week. And they're like, wait, what? Like these kids are like the parents are outside huddled with like coffee and hot chocolate, and their siblings are huddled and they're watching the game in an
Yeah.
outdoor rink. And so I
Mhm.
grew up basically, and the thing is they're free. You don't have to like there are change rooms, but some of them are just like kind of wild rinks where you just throw your stuff on the side and just go play. So I grew up with so much
Mhm.
access to ice that's what like we just did all day. Like, okay, let's go to a rink. And again, you don't need a car, you don't need to drive there because you could walk like 3 blocks. You don't need your parents. That's what kids would just like, they'd walk, they'd put their skates on and like go
Yeah.
play. So that's my experience with hockey, but I didn't actually ever get to like play professionally, or my parents couldn't afford to put me through it. And my dad loved watching it, but he wasn't like invested in making a little hockey player daughter out of it. So that's kind of just like he's just watching and learning. But yeah, I wish like maybe I could start a petition, but I wish we had more outdoor rinks in Boston. At least I don't
I
know if I know
agree.
of one, but I'm sure there are. I just don't think I've
Yeah.
ever really seen one. Can one come to mind for you
I
or
feel like
no?
no, I think there's like gosh, I don't know if it's near the north end, kind of near the garden, but I know there's some kind of
Oh,
rink facility around there.
yes, there is. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Is it indoor, outdoor? It's indoor, right?
I think it's outdoor, and I should know this because we actually did a community event, but before it was open, it was in the summer, like cut the ribbon.
Mhm.
Charlie Jacobs had him talking about it, but like the Bruins are so good at setting up. Um, I think they called it, it's not like a play area, but it's something to do with play, but just like a community area where people can get together. In the North End, obviously, with having so little space, like the fact that they were able to capitalize on the
Yeah.
lack of space and create this place. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was there in the summer though, and I don't know if it's indoor and outdoor. Um,
I know.
there's a rink in
Never been there,
Southie where
but
I grew up, but that's indoor. I would love to just see a bunch of other than like Frog Pond or whatever it's called in the Common. Like I would love to see some just outdoor hockey
yeah,
rinks, but
I
one problem
agree.
at a time, one issue at a time.
Yeah. Exactly. No, Minnesota is as close as I will get to ever living in Canada, for now. But no, it was just cool because you're right. I mean, like the way that like I grew up playing soccer, but the way that kids grow up playing hockey around there, we're on outdoor rinks. So they had outdoor
Yeah,
leagues across the town, and you're right. Like the parents go out with they put like fire pits out there, coffee, hot chocolate. It's such a like a it, and it's I'm going to say it's an experience because I never saw anything like it before moving out there. So yeah, I think
yeah.
that's next level. I think that's the way kids should grow up playing hockey. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I think that's a lot of the guys who play in the outdoor games. There are so many now that the league puts
Mhm.
on, but it's just like a throwback to memories for them. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is an event. Like you said, fire pits, hot chocolate, dogs, kids running around. And like it's fun at a rink too.
Yeah.
It's just different. But anyway, I digress because I
Mhm.
could definitely turn this into a longer topic, but we'll move on to the stuff we were meant to talk about on this pod. Our bosses
yeah.
are going to be like,
Sure.
we can't put Natalie and Soph together because they're just going to catch up for an hour and like not address the show. It's like we
it's like
just
a run.
talked.
Well, I know we're off the tracks a little bit, but it's okay. We'll we'll focus. It's like squirrel. You've seen the movie Up, right? With the dog.
Yes.
It's just like squirrel.
Yes. Yes.
A little bit of that, but
Um,
that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to get in a topic. We're going to start with the NHL postseason. So, admittedly, I didn't watch a ton of the games over the weekend. I did watch one, and I hate bringing this team up because people question me if I'm still loyal to them. I'm not, but I'm here with my family. My dad is still a Leafs
Mhm.
fan, so I watched the Leafs Sens on Sunday night. And the funniest thing, I have. So I'll get your take on the storylines that you're following, but just a quick just a quick point. I don't know if people in Boston know that the running joke with this like Toronto crowd is that every year they think it's their year and it never is. It's just like
Mhm.
they're like, we're going to win the cup this year, start the parade. And the texts have been flying in after one friggin' game. My nephews, my friends are like 6-2, boom, we got this. I'm like, dude, it's one game. Like, have you not learned? Like, chill out.
Right.
You could maybe you'll sweep the series, maybe not. Relax, but like the postseason is such an emotional roller coaster ride, and sometimes like the first two games are very telling of how a series goes. If a team's dominant, and you're like, oh
Mhm.
wow, okay, they swept, and then sometimes it's just a tale of two teams, and I love that. I love just the ride, and even it was a couple years ago in Florida, of course knocked the Bruins out of the postseason. I think it was this game two. Game one was really tight. Game two, I think the Bruins won like 7-2 or similar, like 6-1. It was a 4 or 5 goal
Mhm.
differential in their win. And even Bruins fans were like, okay, yeah, we got this, we got this. And then they were eliminated. So it's like everyone
Yep.
relax after a couple games. That's my favorite thing about the postseason. Are you
Right.
following in particular right now?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, I'm from New England, so growing up watching the Bruins, it's a really foreign postseason for quite a few of us not having our team,
Yeah.
in the postseason. So it's weird. It's kind of like, who do you want to cheer for? Who has? I'm going to say my like justification for who I cheer for is who has the most ties to the Boston Bruins that I might want to like support, or I went to a hockey East school, so I have a lot of friends who are currently, in the organizations of some of these teams, or just people I've watched for years, like some of the hockey East guys who signed this year. Like I want to watch them in the playoffs. But yeah, it's kind of a weird, like it's almost like I'm going to say Bruins fans might feel like they're floundering a little bit because it's like, what do we do? Who do we cheer for? But no, postseason for me was always a lot of fun because growing up, it was always the time of like spring break. So every time, I'd be in Florida or something with my parents, we'd turn the TV on and just watch playoff hockey. So it's kind of like a happy time of year. Playoff hockey is a ton of fun to watch, anyways, just because the intensity, the physicality is all there, and I feel like it's just like that extra gear that you look for all year. It's the time to use it. So it's a ton of fun. But I would say the hardest thing right now, I'm a hockey fan, so I can find ways to like root for some of these teams. But yeah, it's a foreign postseason to us just because it's like, okay, well, that was stopped short. Like in my brain, we should be playing hockey still. So it's kind of weird that the Bruins are done and, they're not in it, but that's okay. Next year is another year. But yeah, for me, it's kind of like, who can I pluck from each team as a reason to cheer for them? And I think for me, like initially, for example, the Maple Leafs, Senators. I think Olmark is someone that I'd like to see be successful, just because we loved him in Boston. I also have a friend, Angus Crookshank, who plays in the organization. He's gone up and down with Ottawa this year, last year. So I feel like I just have a reason that I like Ottawa, but I'm not sure how they're going to do against Toronto. Obviously, Toronto fans feeling like it's their year. But no, I think there's a couple of reasons to be excited about this postseason. But I think the overarching like feeling for Bruins fans in general is like, how interested are we? So I think like some of the most interesting matchups for me, I think I really like the Wild versus Golden Knights series. I think that's going to be really exciting. After the game that they played, it was pretty close to the very end. And then I'm actually excited for Montreal versus the Washington Capitals because obviously everything with Ovechkin and Ryan Leonard that just happened. I feel like there was a lot of eyes on Washington and just a lot of excitement for them too. And then Montreal, just because they have Lane Hudson, another Hockey East kid, I think that's a team that I'm excited for this year. And I hope I don't get shunned by saying that on this podcast, but no,
No.
there's reasons to be excited, but it's hard as a Bruins fan, I feel like.
Yeah, and just like side note, because we didn't have a chance to talk about it, and I can't even remember when. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's been a podcast since I have done locker cleanout. Yeah, this would be the first one.
Oh, really?
But just the vibe in the room, it was so interesting because I'd covered obviously locker cleanout every year that they've been eliminated.
Hmm.
And there was that one year when they were like surprised as hell. It was Bergie's, year, and they were like, "What just happened? We had this record.
Hmm.
We were up 3-1 in the series, blah blah blah." That vibe was very interesting. And then last season as well. This year, like it was a real difference. It wasn't disappointment and sadness. It was like anger and healthy anger. Okay. Like a
Hmm.
healthy, this is shit. And like, this isn't good enough. This is not the standard we hold ourselves to. Before, with those surprise bounce out of the playoffs, it was kind of like, man, like we didn't see it coming. Sorry, I just dropped everything. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We didn't see it coming. Whatever. Moving on. We didn't see this coming. This, whatever it was just this like shock. But I guess, but like, I don't know what the word is, but we could have done something about it, but this is just how the postseason goes. This was kind of like weeks and months of being like, this
Hmm.
was falling apart. We are not okay with this standard. We are pissed. And it felt really great. Like Charlie McAvoy, who hadn't
Hmm.
had a chance to step up as the leader he wanted to because of his injury. And he had said many times, and the guys in the room had said many times, Brick has said this, you can be injured and come into the room, read lineups, be around the guys, but you can't lead the same way if you're not playing. Like you just, first of all, you lead so much on the ice.
Right.
Second of all, you're out there, you come in between periods. You can be like a hype man if you're in a suit, really, and like, healing from your injury, but you can't be the leader you want to be. And he was very clear about that being a problem, him being really annoyed and going through this for the first time, like David Pasternak. And they weren't like, this is the league, there's parity. They were just like, this is unacceptable. And I don't know why I'm going off on
Hmm.
this tangent, but I think you were just talking about how it's weird. It is weird for Bruins
Yeah.
fans to not have the postseason, but I just want to say that like it doesn't feel like these guys are like, whatever, we'll get it next year. They are
Hmm.
spending the next 4 or 5 months internally completely reconfiguring the culture that they felt was kind of, had kind of gotten this, I don't know, I wouldn't say slipping away, but was kind of falling apart with all these main guys that were traded. They're going to do so much work, and they're really counting on management, and management is going to try their best to make sure that they get pieces that they're ready to be like a competitive team, not just make the
Yeah.
postseason, but competitive in the postseason. So it is a weird feeling. Like you said, it's weird for Bruins fans, but I guess I just want to throw that in there because I didn't get to talk about the vibe. But it
Yeah.
was like a really healthy anger,
Hmm.
and it made me feel like jacked up. I'm like, yeah, these guys aren't just like, oh, whatever, we'll get it next year. They were pissed. And that's what you want to know.
Yeah, it's like first of all, I love that inside look. That's why we love what you do, Sophia. But yeah, it's like the chip on your shoulder kind of thing. It's like we were stopped short. We didn't get as far as we wanted to, but also what about the year that they had? It was just such a roller coaster kind of year between, just turnovers of players, of staff. It was just difficult to kind of like feel. I mean, I can't put myself in their shoes, but as a fan or just someone who works around the team a little bit, it's like, wow, how do you stay mentally dialed in through so many ups and downs? And the fan base was feeling so many things. As a matter of fact, it was kind of funny. My first day in Worcester this year, I think it was a pitcher, Shane Drowan and Roman Anthony came up to me and they said, "What do you think of the Brad Marchand trade?" And I said, well, it kind of hurt. It sucked a little bit because I love the guy, but now I'm a Panthers fan. And they kind of started clapping in the dugout because they're like, we love it. We're in Florida. Florida loves it. We love having Brad Marchand on our team. And we love to hear that, we're also acquiring some new fans from New England. So for them, it's really cool and, encouraging for some of these players to be in new places and see a new life or postseason, a new jersey. But a lot of people are excited about the way that some things went. Kind of cool to hear the baseball guys talk about it too. Like that kind of, excited me in a different way. Like, wow, baseball fans are keeping eyes on hockey teams and they love
Yeah.
Brad Marchand being with us. So I thought that was a really cool moment for me just to kind of hear that support from them. But yeah, it was kind of a strange year and a tough ending for them. But I think it's a good way for them to feel in order to come into next season, because I think we'll have a new and revived Bruins team to watch. And, hopefully we get to talk about them in the postseason next year. But yeah, that's a great perspective. And, a team that comes to mind for me too, who missed the postseason last year, this year is Minnesota. And I enjoy watching them. I enjoyed watching, I'm going to talk about Zeev Buyem's rookie lap for this game. And what a crazy moment that was for him to make his NHL debut in a playoff game, to do the rookie lap, to come in. I don't even know what time in the game it was, but it was pretty early on. He took a major hit from a Golden Knights player, almost went, ass over tea kettle into the Vegas Golden Knights bench. And everybody was just laughing, like, welcome to the league, Zeev. Kind of cool to have you here. And be brought into this game at such an intense time of the season. I mean, to be 19 years old, to come off a season with Denver, and then just to enter the NHL, at such a pivotal time of year. I mean, what a time to be a rookie in the league, and what a way to have your rookie lap. Such probably one of the more memorable moments of his career from this point on, because I just think that's such a cool way to start. And Minnesota, I think they're going to come into playoffs like hungry. Like, again, Vegas won this first game, but they had a decent game. And I really enjoy watching Matt Boldy, Ryan Hartman, and Kirill Kaprizov, because I think that line is a trio to keep an eye on. Of course, top line for the team, but just a ton of fun. And I wanted to highlight that Zeev Buyem moment just because I thought that was really cool for him. I mean, 19 years old and doing that. I was not doing that.
No, listen, Nat, I want to expand on this conversation because it just brings up some Bruins points and just the storyline of being young and the pressure of joining the playoffs. But first, I got to pause, and we're going to throw in a promo over here because it is a busy week at Boston with the NFL draft at Boston. That's the dumbest thing I've ever said. It's a busy week at Nesson. I don't know why I said at Boston. So pause that thought, and we'll be back to it in a second. But I'm just reminding fans that it is NFL draft week. And so we got to take a look at what's going on. What do the Patriots do with the fourth overall pick? Well, we have something called the Foxborough Rush on the clock. It's a live 2-hour NFL draft special during the first round on Thursday night. It's kicking off at 8 p.m. on Nesson Nation and on Nesson's YouTube. And that's going to be hosted by George Valechki and Travis Thomas. You can hear from NFL draft experts such as PFF's Trevor Sakema, ESPN's Matt Miller, and NBC's Connor Rogers on what the Patriots should be doing. So remember, that's Foxborough Rush on the clock, a live 2-hour NFL draft special on Nesson Nation from 8 to 9, then on Nesson immediately after the Woo Sox game, and live streaming on YouTube. All right, Nat, sorry I had to pause you on that thought, but we got to pump what's going on at Nesson. But back to so your thought about, a player coming in at a pivotal time. We talked about Ryan Leonard, and then he got to see Ovechkin break the record. Like that whole thing is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. But a player joining a team in the middle or at the start of postseason is kind of crazy. Charlie McAvoy did it in 2017. And I would like to talk about it from a different perspective, I guess, when the Bruins were calling up, and they called up many guys from Providence just to see what they had near the end of the season.
Right.
Fraser Minton, who came in on the trade from Toronto, Brandon Carlo going the other way. He was, I think, one of the most exciting pieces that we got back. A couple of draft picks that we don't know what the Bruins are going to do with, but this was a guy that, the Leafs organization was really excited about, and now he's with the Bruins. So when he came up, one of my questions to him was asking him if it's easier to join a team when they're kind of out of the playoff push. So technically, mathematically, they weren't eliminated, but the way things had been going the previous 5 or 6 games, when they were, 3 points out of a wild card spot, they really shot themselves in the foot with this West Coast road trip that they didn't play well on. And it was kind of understood that this is probably a mountain that's too big for us to climb. So it was just different vibes, hence why management was bringing up AHL guys, right? And so in my mind, I was thinking about it. I'm like, what if you get called up and there are 5 games left and you're 1 point or 2 points out of the wild card, and every point matters? That would be so stressful to play your first NHL game, and you don't want to make a mistake. You're probably going to be that, unless you're super confident or cocky in a good way, you're probably going to be pass first mentality, get the puck off my stick. I don't want to be responsible for this like even if we goes to overtime and that we lose and that one point was the make or break because of me, because I coughed up a puck at the blue line or couldn't keep it in, like that would be very stressful. So I asked him about joining a team when there isn't that much pressure. And I felt bad for that
Mhm.
question because he kind of looked at me like, you know how I'm going to answer this. He was kind of like, no, there's always pride in every game. We always want the 2 points. It doesn't matter where we are in the season. I'm going to play the same way. And so I was like, that's the fair answer to the media. You don't want to be like, yeah, it's easy when points
Right.
don't matter, So
Yeah.
I kind of talked to him off camera, and I talked to Morgan Geeky actually about that. And I asked him, I was like, oh, damn, was that? I felt bad for putting Fraser on the spot. And he's like, no, that's a very fair question. And there probably is like Morgan was saying, if it was me, yeah, there is a different kind of relief when you aren't worried about if your mistake or your your learning curve is going to affect whether a team makes the postseason. So on that note, super exciting to be a player that's joining the playoffs. But I think that would in the postseason and like dreams coming true. But I think that would be really hard, don't you think? Just to feel that immense pressure of like make or break, every game count matters.
Yeah, and I mean, I always think about like proving yourself too. Like I'm the type of person who feels like I need to prove myself, whether, I'm working with a new TV truck, a new control room. I'm always like, okay, I need to impress. I need to impress. I need to be like earn their trust, earn their respect. But in a position like that, like I think about, what Ryan Leonard kind of came into with Ovechkin. It's almost like the pressure was off of him a little bit because all eyes were on Alex Ovechkin because he was so close
Yeah.
to breaking that record. I don't know if that had an impact on him or not. Obviously, he kind of came in and maybe took a game or two to settle in, but he seemed to do pretty well. As for, Buium, the reason I brought him up was just like, wow, what a time to have a rookie lap right before your first NHL game, first playoff game. You're wearing a new sweater. You just finished a college hockey season, top 3 finalist for Hobie Baker. And here he is. It's like, if it's not one thing, it's another for this kid. So maybe he's just used to the spotlight. Maybe he's used to the pressure. I don't even know if there really is, pressure because they've already made the playoffs. But you wonder, how is he feeling in terms of wanting to like prove himself? I think he was playing with Zach Bogosian as well. So, that's a veteran in the league, someone who's steady, someone who could kind of, I don't know, talk him through the ebbs and flows of the game. So I think that was probably a good matchup for him to play with on a line. So I think that was probably a good way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, you do wonder what's going on inside their heads, or they wear those heart rate monitors now. So you wonder like what they're feeling. But no, I just thought that was really cool and a really interesting interaction you had because I mean, that was interesting just to see the Bruins. They pulled up, I think, like Freddie Brunet. There were people along the glass with shirts that said Brunet.
Yeah,
Um,
that was cute.
yeah, really an interesting time of year. Yeah, so that was just cool. I like when the young guys get called up because it's like, oh yeah, good for them. Their parents must be so happy. Friends traveling in, kind of a cool time of year. But yeah, so I'll be interested to see, how the Wild do with Booyam. I'll be interested to see how the Capitals do with Leonard. I think the Canadians with Hudson. I think that's all been exciting to follow. So I think those are the teams that I'll keep an eye on here. But yeah, I really have no bias here. Whoever wins, I'm fine with. So that's kind of how
Yeah,
I
I
feel.
mean, I definitely just want to see some exciting series. It's hard because like every single one of the Bruins that was traded away, and like they were all actually great guys, I think, even if another
Mhm.
5 guys not named Marchand, Carlo, Coyle, Frederick and Brezzo were traded, I would
Yeah.
still feel the same way. But all of them were
Yeah.
such character guys, and they're all going to different teams that you're like, damn, like I want to see. I love Trent Frederick as a person. I want to see him do well so
Yeah.
badly. But I love Brendan Carlo too. Love Charlie Coyle,
Hmm.
Brad Marchand. So I'm pulled in all sorts of directions. I think the most interesting storyline for me is the Brad Marchand story because he
Hmm.
and management technically, according to like the press conferences, the door is still open. Okay. So, like, if people are listening to me and they're like, no, he's done, he's not coming back. Yeah, that might be true. I don't know. But the door has been left open, according to Brad and Don Sweeney. Brad's obviously becoming a free agent this summer. If he changes his mind, like this is why it's interesting because let's say Florida goes all the way, let's say they win again, or let's say they go far and Brad gets a really good taste about, what kind of competitive team he wants to play for. So many things could happen. He could get really homesick and feel like, you know what, this was really fun, but I belong in Boston and this is what I want. He could feel the opposite and say, this was such a cool adventure. If Katrina and the kids are willing to go on this adventure with me, like move from Boston, I think I want to do that for the remainder of my career. It really is just going to depend on like what it feels like for him. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm so invested in the storyline, because it could go either way. He could love it and love the run, or he could be like, yeah, this was awesome, but it's not like Boston, and I don't know. Obviously, no one knows except for him. So I think that's like the playoff team that I'm following the most, just because it means something to me in my job. Like, what is this going to mean? Is Brad going to
Mhm.
come back? Is the offer that Sweens gave him going to be good enough? Is he going to get a taste of a market and realize that, like, you know what, this is okay being away from home. I think I could do this. Like all of the above. So and him being, whereas like Carlo has many more years, Charlie Coyle has few more years, Trent Frederick being young, they have many years. Where Brad, I think, is still going to be a competitive player for the next 3 or 4 years. We know that this contract coming up is probably going to be his last. So I want him to go as far as
Right.
possible and do as well as possible. So that's basically it. And like I think this so early in the postseason, the storylines are gonna speak for themselves, and maybe by the next show or like next week we'll have a better idea of like what storylines are really like
Right.
clicking and ticking and stuff like that. And I want your feedback on what I said, but we do got to get the fleet in. So let's kind of wrap on the NHL talk. I'm going to throw in one more promo, and then we're going to talk about the fleet, because you are our gal to talk about that. Obviously this is the
I
Hockey
hope
Hub,
so.
so we're doing another Hockey Hub promo on the Hockey Hub. But if you are liking this conversation and what you hear, remember you can subscribe to the show, Hockey Hub. I don't know where you guys are listening now, but it can also be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever your podcasts are found. So just a little Hockey Hub promo there as we continue to talk about hockey, switching to the PWHL. So they had this, correct me if I say anything wrong, but there was this break for the World Championships. Canada,
Yep.
US in the final, what we usually expect from the women's game. And thrilling 4-3 win. I'm just making sure I get that right. Yeah, 4-3 win. Um, 1 second. Yes. Okay. Got that. Sorry about that. I thought I read a headline wrong here. But a 4-3 win
You
there for
got it.
Team USA. We know these
Mhm.
two teams. One thing I will say is I cannot wait for the women's game to grow overseas a little bit more. And
Yeah.
they're getting more competitive, like the Finlands and the Swedens of the world. But we usually predict that Canada and the US are going to be in the final, which, like, for us, awesome. So exciting,
Mhm.
keeps the rivalry like crazy and alive. But I hope we get to start to see a little bit more competition, just to make it more fun and exciting to follow other players, and to know that the women's game is growing overseas as well. But with that, just to tie it into the fleet, so U.S. captain Hillary Knight, she extended her record for most World Championship gold medals, which is 10, and most medals,
Mhm.
15, won by a player. So obviously super exciting for her. But the regular season is paused for this World Championships, and now the fleet and other teams are back at it, competing for a playoff position. Can you fill us in on the storylines and kind of like what's going on over there?
Yeah, I think this break came at a really good time for the team because obviously they were kind of going on a bit of a tear. They played Minnesota February 16th, and then they ended up going 6-2 over their next 8 games, and then they dropped 3 heading into this break. So obviously not the way they wanted to hit pause. I know a big point of emphasis for them was just at this time of year it was kind of mentally difficult because they playoffs were still a month away, but the talk of points, the talk of securing a position was so relevant. But unfortunately, they still, and not unfortunately, but it was just like tough timing. Playoffs are being spoken about, playoffs are in our mind, but we still have about a month to get there because we have the World Championships break. And I think, it was a good time for them to just say, okay, you know what? Let's shift our focus. We'll hit pause. Some of us are going to play with, the teams over, wherever, USA, Canada. But some of us are going to stay behind. We're going to do community events. We're going to go out and we're going to volunteer. We're going to visit some kids, do some youth clinics. So yeah, that's kind of what the Boston Fleet have been up to the past few weeks. Obviously, just competing in the World Championships, or just taking some time to like recenter themselves here at home. And I think it's a good time for players to obviously nurse some maybe lingering injuries. I don't know who exactly will be back, but I know that before the break, Courtney Kessel was talking about a potential Hannah Bilka return, and she was, a huge piece of that top line with Hillary Knight early on. So, hopefully she can make a return. No official word yet as to, what her timeline looks like, but she seems to be doing better. As well as before the break, Jill Saulnier, who had kind of taken Bilka's spot on that line, she got kind of banged up in the March 28th game, I think, in St. Louis. So she left the game, didn't play the next one, and then the break happened. So I guess kind of long story short, Boston is a good time for them to kind of hit the reset button. I think a lot of important pieces for the Boston Fleet are also going to be on a high after winning the gold medal with Team USA. Obviously, Hillary Knight, Erin Frankel, and Megan Keller. It's been fun to see them in the photos and the social media and all that stuff. But it'll be interesting what they come back to and how the team kind of connects again, because it's like, all right, reset once more. We've got 3 more games before our fate is decided with the postseason. And I think the time to play with urgency, is now, of course. It's like we talk about that extra gear, that playoff hockey. They haven't made playoffs yet, but there's a really tight battle between that 3rd, 4th, and 5th place in the standings. I think it's Boston, Ottawa, and Minnesota all separated by a point. And there's essentially 9 points to get here over the next 3 games for Boston. So they do need to put everything on the line. They have a tough opponent in Toronto coming up April 26th. And that's a team that I think Toronto is 4-1 against them. So, they'll have to hit the drawing board and get to work. And I think, this next game will tell a lot about the Boston Fleet. So hopefully they're healthy. Hopefully they're hungry. And hopefully they're able to get some points out of this one.
Yeah, so you're saying the standings super tight. As of now, if the postseason were to start, they'd be in it. But with just each team or
Yep.
the bottom couple being separated by a point, it's not maybe like you must win all of them, but like they're
Right.
motivated to keep winning, obviously, because they could slide down outside of a playoff position, correct?
Yeah, so it's you're right. I mean, if the playoffs started today, they would be in 3rd place, which means that the top 1 and 2 seed would kind of pick their opponent, or sorry, the top
Yeah.
1 seed would pick their opponent, and then kind of just by default, the other teams would play each other. What's kind of interesting about there only being 6 teams is I feel like these teams are kind of starting to become pros with how they match up against each other. So I don't know what
Yeah.
that means for the level of competition going forward. But at this point in the year, it's all about, the coaches are like, oh, we match up well against them, or we don't match up too well against, that in particular. So it's just kind of interesting to see how they approach playing each other because they see each other so often throughout the year. But yeah, Boston Fleet, I mean, like genuinely, if they dropped all their games, they're done. But if they fight, if they go to overtime, if they go to shootout, they still walk away with some points. And that's why everything matters. They could walk away with 2, 1, 3, or none. So, I mean, it's now's the time. I think, it's interesting because they were kind of in a position last year where they were not doing too well heading into this time of year. But now I feel like
Hmm.
the main issue for them was putting 60 minutes together. And obviously you can't play a perfect 60 minutes, but that's kind of what you could point your finger to, what went wrong in those 3 games that they lost before the break. They wanted to fix a strong, quick start. And they did, but then third periods ended up being their Achilles heel. They'd drop, or a couple goals would be scored against them, and then they'd lose the game. So it's finding a way to manage the ebbs and the flows of 60 minutes and make sure that you're staying dominant and, taking the next shift where the last person leaves off. And I think that's going to be really important for them to be just cohesive and hungry and play with intensity from the first puck drop to the last whistle. So, and you know what? I think it is kind of funny. Hillary Knight's coming back with a black eye. I'll need to ask her about that one. But she looks so cool. She looks, it's awesome seeing her hold the trophy in the locker room with the black eye, that picture that's circulating online. I mean, this game is tough. It's physical. It's fun. And it's been such a joy to cover them all year because they are so personable.
We are almost
Sure.
wrapping up the show, so we're just going to sneak in one more promo. A show that you appear on often, of course, being Respect Her Game. And you, as well as everyone who gets on the show as we continue to follow the Fleet's chase for the Walter Cup, you can hear that on Respect Her Game. And that is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Very fun
Yeah.
co-hosting with you. I'm sure we'll do this again throughout the summer, Nat. And yeah, thanks for today. I think we're wrapped up on the
Yeah.
show, but have a great week, and I'm sure I'll
Sounds
talk to you
good.
soon, and go Fleet.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sophia. Go Fleet.